What is the biggest betrayal you have faced? So I'm having a party. A buddy of mine who had a habit of getting really pissed off for small thing and taking revenge. Revenge was some petty bullshit that you won't even know about. Like he spit in my wallet. So one night he gets pissed. Chuckles goes and pops holes in all my condoms. That's bad. But he comes back the next day saying he forgot something and throws them away. As I'm being told this story, I also learned that another one of our friends at the time watched him do it and said nothing. I asked him why he didn't say anything and he said he didn't want Chuckles to mad at him. To me, that was the worst thing about the story and I told him so. That wasn't the only time he watched people f***ing up in my place and did nothing. He is the type of person that can do no wrong. The kind that can do whatever he wants and you should forgive him because you're friends and everyone owes him something. Like he refuses to acknowledge that some of the shit he does is f***ed up. His mom and him got into a fight. He went out, got drunk, drove back home. Shit went down. We don't know what exactly because he didn't think he did anything wrong. His mom has him arrested and a 2-year restraining order placed on him. That shit doesn't happen unless you did something. We've not been friends for some time now. And I told him it's because he's an asshole. He's one of the worst people I've met and I've met some really bad people. But those people at least understood their shitty behavior was shitty. All my friends in JR High stopped talking to me one day. Claimed I was too odd to be their friend. Proceeded to bully me through the rest of JR High. I was really quiet and shy. It was a rough few years. Oh man. Similar thing happened to me in JR High. My group of friends at the time went at the normal lunch table where we all met for lunch. Found them sitting elsewhere. And sat down with them. Asked why they didn't tell me where they moved. And was informed by my best friend that they didn't want me to know. Turns out that they were told they would be cooler if they didn't hang out with me. And they told their parents that they stopped hanging out with me because I was smoking pot. Spoilers. Never even tried pot till I was out of high school. Wendo started putting 3 ice cream bars in a box instead of 4. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Upon further inspection, I saw some small text stating there were 3 bars inside. They didn't even lower the price. I have never been so disappointed and hurt in my life. Everyone in here is being betrayed by family and lovers. And you come in here to say that Dev put less ice cream in the box. Now how is everyone supposed to drown their sorrows in ice cream? Well, look at it this way. Say you want 4 ice cream bars for a party. You get the 2 boxes to have enough. You now have 2 extra bars of ice cream to eat at your leisure. Cancer. My own cells turned on me. WTF. Know that feel. First hand. Wish you the best. Moved in with the guy that I was dating. A week after I moved in, he went away for the weekend. I baked and cooked for him while he was away because I knew he was going to be exhausted when he came back. He came back. Told me he met another woman and that we were done. From that moment on, he was emotionally and verbally abusive. The BTCH was threatened by me because I was his roommate and I was attractive. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been a home-wrecking cunt. So he decided to be an arsehole to me to prove to her that any feelings he had for me were gone. It was horrid. What was worse was that he was a master manipulator. We had mutual friends. Every time they would come over to hang out, he would twist all these little stories and lies to make me look like a crazy bitch. It was awful. I got out when I finally could and have a better life now. Dated the guy I lost my V card to for about 6 months. Thought I was in love at 17/18 and was blind to his faults. He was older and had a kid from what I thought was an ex-GF per his story, but turns out he was engaged to her the whole time we were seeing each other. Already had trust issues, so that didn't help. Found out a week before his wedding and promptly broke all ties. He still tried getting me back a month later. I was recruited by a well-known company who convinced me to move my family from the city we loved. Sold my family home. Gave up my well-established 17-year business and income. then work like a dog for a year building up a failing competitor. Invested nearly $250. 000. Turned them around. Nearly doubled the business in a year. Then got shown the door at the end of the year when it was time for my permanent contract. I've spent the past 5 years rebuilding nearly next door out of pure spite. Spanking them daily at every chance I get. I've rebuilt the income I once had and now it can't be taken from me in any way by corporate shills. Hate can be one hell of an inspiration. I get over it a bit more every day. But watching the person they shoved in to take my place slowly lose what they took from me has been quite healing. Still. That day. That knife in the back. Betrayal seems a tame word. My own uncle killed my dad. But made it look like an accident. I blamed myself and ran away. While I was gone my uncle moved in with my mom and told my whole family I died in the same accident that killed my father. One of my longtime friends ran into me a few years later and begged me to come back home and fix things. When I did finally come home, the place was in a state of chaos. My uncle got angry and tried to kill me. I had no choice. I threw him off a cliff and roared loudly. Then Pride Rock was mine. That's how I became the Lion King. I looked up to a man who was a friend, a mentor, and like a father figure to me. He convinced me to leave my position and come work for him. He would get me promoted and help me achieve my goals. He needed me on his team, etc. I went to work for him and it was like Jekyll and Hyde. He insulted me, talked about me behind my back, used me as a scapegoat for the problems he was having with the rest of his staff, and in fact, completely derailed my reputation and career. It took me 4 years of busting my ass to get my reputation back. I still don't understand why. One of the worst experiences of my life. My best friend made my girlfriend pregnant. We were 14 at the time. We go to a party. I get drunk. Falls asleep. When I wake up I don't remember anything from the day before. My GF doesn't answer my calls. And she avoids me at school. When I mention that I hardly remember anything from the party, he starts talking about how crazy and awesome it was. When I start talking to my GF again, she doesn't mention the party at all. I think 2 or 3 weeks later my GF doesn't show up at school. I ask her best friend, my GF's best friend was my best friend's girlfriend, where she is and she says the dentist. When I a couple of days later ask my GF how it was at the dentist, she doesn't know what I'm talking about. I then confront her best friend and ask where she really was. She says that she was pregnant with my baby. GHT I knew that my GF was going to the doctor to confirm that she was pregnant with my baby. I call her and wonder WTF is going on. She then says that we had sex on the party and it was my fault for not using a condom. I realized that she had to be lying because everyone said I passed out on the couch and laid there all night. I get that confirmed. And I asks around who it was. It turns out it's my best friend. Someone saw they kiss in a bedroom. I confront her and she admits it all but says that she got raped by my friend. She then starts crying. I call my friend and Jay admit it too. But he sweared he didn't pay her. It was all really weird. A few months later I moved away, nothing to do with any of this, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. Last I hears my friend was in jail. My ex-boyfriend and my ex-best friend started seeing each other behind my back whilst we were still dating. I had been with my partner for 1.2 years but I had known him for most of my life and the friend that I had was someone that I trusted completely. Took a long time to get over it. Kind of a similar thing happened to me. My ex-girlfriend started talking to and getting all flirty with one of my best friends. He told me right away. I broke up with her the day after. They are together for over 4 months now. I trust him like crazy now. Though I still have a hard time trusting women. Boyfriend of 3 years used secrets I had confided in him against me to win an argument we had been having about someone who didn't like me. He told that person a lot of deep secrets. And then emailed me the conversation. He later went on a secret revealing spree to our mutual best friend. who isn't surprisingly not friends with him anymore. I'm still digesting that betrayal over a year late. I was going to move country for that guy. And he shattered my heart to win a petty argument. Felt depressed and suicidal in my sophomore year in high school. Decided to tell my mom about it so I could maybe get some help. She decided to guilt trip me right then and there by saying she might as well kill herself then too and proceed to make it about herself. I love my mom dearly still and I know she does care for me. But that trust will never be regained and I will never tell her anything truly personal about myself again and will seek any help or advice I need elsewhere. My then best friend couldn't support me and my current so because she had a crush on him that I wasn't aware of. She attempted to cease the relationship and even asked me not to sleep with him. We're no longer friends. Another ex-best friend just stopped all forms of communication with me after my 21st day dinner. I even opened up to her that night and cried on her shoulder while she comforted me. Still NFIY, but I guess it's not a huge loss anyway. Kind of a long typical story. But I'll share it anyways. I met my ex-boyfriend in high school. We dated for a little over a year and then split up because we argued too much. We never actually went our separate ways and remained best friends, with benefits, for the following year. We did everything together. And I spoiled him completely rotten. We had a great friendship that I cherish so much. One weekend, after talking about getting back together, I surprised him and paid for a trip to Monterey. And we had a really wonderful romantic time. Keep in mind, I paid for everything. Spent over $400 on this trip. A few days after the trip, I go to a party with my best friend. And he picks me up after. And doesn't speak a word to me on the whole way home. Drops me off. And I don't hear from him for an entire month. I called him so many times that I couldn't keep track. Cried every single day. Even tried to go to his house to see what was up. He eventually replied to me a month later and never gave an explanation. We hung out twice and he pretty much used me for sex when I thought we were patching things up. Didn't text me on my birthday 2 days after our last hangout and then he went missing again for 2 months. We're friends again currently and I still have no idea why he did it. I have been extremely depressed and also tried to kill myself. I was in a psych ward and everything. My mother doesn't know that it was so bad. A couple of years ago, I had some financial issues. I turned to my mother for help and she said she would. Then she claimed that I had lied to her and turned her back on me. She also said that I was too much of a coward to kill myself. Some people are selfish. It doesn't matter what blood we are attached to. Depression is a horrible and crippling thing to live with. The best advice I have is if someone refuses to understand, find people who do. Family is overrated if they ain't a burden and have no acceptance. That is what my therapist told me. People are people, right? I had this really good friend who always stayed in my room. I lived in a shared house in the city. She was living with her parents outside of town. She told me she had no money at all so I didn't feel too bad for supporting her when we cooked food or went out for beers. One time she showed up at my house and showed me 5 new pairs of sneakers she had bought at one of those expensive retro sneaker shop. Apparently she had been saving for them. I should have stopped hanging out with her at that time. She later took some money that my other friend had provided for her to buy me some medicine. I was sick and couldn't move. She went to her party. Got to my house at 6 in the morning and told a lie that all the ATMs were closed so she couldn't get the medicine. I called my other friend, the one who had given her the money, and she blew her cover and I threw her out on her ass. She is now a happy mother of 2. Alone. Never worked a day in her life. Living off the state welfare system, one of the very few snags of the Scandinavian model. I believe this will get buried. But here it goes. My biggest betrayal is when my father hooked up with my stepmother, now wife. Long story short, he has spent vacations where he has brought along my stepbrother and his wife without including or notifying me about their trip. Bought a sports boat, a holiday house and bought other various things for my stepmother whilst doing very little, in comparison, with me. He rarely calls me. Maybe once every 1-2 months. It lasts about a minute or so. Only because people are asking on how I'm doing and he has no clue what I'm up to or anything. He has also skipped out a lot of benefits that he is supposed to pay to my mom. Yet, he claims he doesn't have that much money. I have to support my mom quite a bit financially since she has cancer. He's giving me $150 each month as of now. I'm going to let karma take care of him. And I'm going to be 100x more successful than him or his wife. Trust me on this one. Had a friend who had a kid. Kid dad was a deadbeat. Helped out said friend W kid BC, she was struggling really bad. She lived in her mother's basement. The housing company threatened to evict her family BC, she wasn't supposed to live there. Helped her move into a new place once she got a better job. She started dating the kid's father again. He caused her to lose her job. Struggling to pay bills and running through savings. He was always there. Eating up the food. Complaining and smoking. W no job. She asked me to pay her rent, $650. I agreed to only help. She promised to pay me back. At this time the kid's father had a seasonal job. But she didn't seem too eager to make some money BC, she assumed she was my responsibility. Day before rent was due I gave her $250. She got pissed BC, I wasn't paying the whole amount, telling me she had no one else to rely on and her kid's father doesn't have an earnings and doesn't get paid for another few weeks. After that she stopped talking to me and now is dragging my name through the dirt. TLDR. Friend decided to end friendship BC, I chose not to pay her whole rent and her boyfriend is the reason she doesn't have a job. She didn't ask him to pay anything. Found out from other people my girlfriend was cheating on me. I stopped taking her calls and just cut her off. I then went on a bender of sadness that same day. I ended up getting a DUI and sat in the drunk tank for a while. And was in this other guy who was a stranger. When we were released I see my girlfriend sitting there in the waiting area. Not waiting for me either. She didn't know who to embrace. She seemed shocked and concerned, wanting to give us both a ride home. I just passed them by not saying a word and gave them the bird. So it's like a rite of passage in my country to go away with your mates and get shit-faced and bone girls after you finish high school. A lot of guys lose their virginity and meet their first girlfriends here. My crew was going. Literally the week before. The guys get together and say they bought the tickets. But instead of getting me one they got one of the guy's older cousins one. So that he could buy booze for them. So I didn't go. Set the tone for the rest of my life. FCK. I only just lost my V card this year in my mid-20s. And then she randomly had a boyfriend behind my back and that was that too. Congrats. You're in your mid-20s. That's not even half of the rest of your life. And now you can get shit-faced and bone as many girls as you want. Whenever you want. Without the disability of having a child's inexperienced brain. I'd say everything is coming up Millhouse. Got a call one day from the IT guy where my, then, second wife worked. He said that he really shouldn't be doing what he was going to. But that he felt I had a right to know. He asked for my email address and forwarded me an FTP link to hundreds of emails and chat logs that showed she had been meeting and f-king random men that she found in chat rooms for well over the year that she was with them. And had been secretly on birth control for 6 years, which was how long she'd been doing this all in all, even though she constantly talked about how much she wanted to have kids with me. Me. As in the guy that moved to another f-king country entirely to be with her. Me. The guy that learned an entirely new f-king language and had to work 2 jobs so that she could sit on her ass and watch TV all day long. So I confronted her about it and she just gave me an awkward grin and said that she did it to make herself feel good. Needless to say, I threw her out on her ass, but just to add insult to injury. A few days later she got into our house and stole my Xbox 360 and 48 games as well as some limited edition Lotta statues. I only added the latter because I really miss those games. Not really me, but my mother. My mom and dad were married for 25 years. 2 kids. Successful jobs. Happy suburban life. But my dad was never really satisfied. My mom was very successful in her career. She worked high up at a huge corporation and my dad was blue collar. I think that always really bothered him to some extent. My mom traveled a lot, so my dad raised my brother and myself mostly. But my mom was the breadwinner and the provider. When I was 18 they filed for divorce. My dad told me that he was unhappy and waiting for me and my brother to be out of the house. That he hadn't been happy in years. That my mom was cold and unloving. That he wanted a relationship and not a breadwinner. Fast forward to the day they signed the divorce paperwork. It was spring break and I was staying with my mom on break from school. My mom gets a phone call from her best friend in the entire world. The woman who was basically my aunt growing up. They were high school cheerleaders together. They were sorority sisters. Etc. Turns out it was a confession phone call. My mom's best friend called to come clean about the affair her and my dad were having. That next year my dad married that woman. It's been several years now, but my brother still won't have anything to do with my dad and it still pains my mom to talk about it. I tried to be neutral. I think at 18 I wasn't emotionally mature enough to really understand my mom's pain. She wasn't perfect. But she tried and did what she could for her family. My dad was a great father growing up. But if he wasn't happy, I don't blame him for leaving. I just wish he would have gone about it in another way. My mom telling me that I'm a shame to the family because I support and agree with the LGBT community. Especially the gay marriage movements. She has often brought this event up when conversations got heated. Most recently when I wrote an essay about single parents and non-traditional families. Had a pleasant conversation about the topic I was researching days before, and when it came back that I failed the essay she threw it back up in my face and threatened to pull the financial aid that they gave me. And she wonders why I hate her and want nothing to do with her. My ex-best friend. She had lying and control issues. So once I started getting serious with my boyfriend of 3 years. She told me he was cheating on me and other lies. She would anonymously message me details of him sleeping with my friends. But I later found out that the stories didn't make sense because I would be with my friends or boyfriend when the stories were supposed to be taking place. It was all really shitty. And she just isn't a good person in general. She lied about being pregnant so a guy could pay for her abortion when really she was just keeping the money. Pregnant at a very young age. My BF told me we would get married. Get a house. The whole 9 yards. Then BF changes his mind. Decided to place baby up for adoption. He made threats to ruin my life if I kept the baby. I knew it wouldn't be right to raise a child in this kind of environment, so I decided as well. BF demeanor changed. Promised to take me on vacation and stick by my side. Hardly saw him during the pregnancy. I moved out on my own. He said he would help me get furniture because I had none. Another lie. I slept on the floor. Clothes in boxes. I had a job which helped with bills and food. He still lived with his parents. A family friend helped me with furniture. It was a hot, lonely summer and being pregnant during the summer was no fun. I would sit in the park for shade all day in hopes my BF would call, but no. Then baby is about to be born. I call him but no one picks up. I call a family member and they take me to the hospital. Still no BF. I almost died giving birth. The baby was almost 10 pounds. Stuck in the birth canal. BF finally comes. Baby was distressed due to the delivery, but BF tells them I did drugs, which wasn't true. I make them do a blood test on me. Of course I'm clean. BF forces me not to see the baby because he didn't want me to change my mind, but I already made my mind up and I would continue with the adoption. He bails on me again and says he will take me home from the hospital. He never comes, so I walk back to my apartment. A family friend calls to tell me he saw my BF with another girl. I call him. No answer. Come to find out he was cheating on me during the whole pregnancy. He just disappears from my life. I get a card in the mail from some girl. It's him and her on the vacation we talked about. I felt lost and betrayed. I was super good friends with this guy. Over the years we had no strings attached sex. Little did I know he was ashamed to have slept with me. Later on he was having problems with his girlfriend and her and I were talking. She told me about how she feels like a second fiddle because the girl this boy wanted to date kept turning him down. So she felt like he was dating her because he couldn't date anyone else. We were all very drunk that night as it was New Year's. So I told her that before they were together him and I were doing the dirty and how he kept talking about the girl he wanted to date. Well, his girlfriend confronted him about it and he denied that we have ever been together intimately. She didn't believe him and they broke up. He blamed me and to defend himself he lied to all of our friends saying that I was spreading rumors about him and that I was a big fat liar. I had only told her in our group of friends. No one believed me and so they all stopped hanging out with me. Him and I had been friends for over 8 years. The fact that he was so ashamed of me is the worst hurt I have ever faced. A couple of days ago my brother invited me over to his house. He was wasted. I had to stop him from bugging a group of cops when we walked to the store and he had people yelling outside their windows that he was being too loud. Anyway, we go back to his house. He continues to drink heavily. He chokes me, punches me in the face. I will never put my hands on family ever. So I left and came back in the morning because he was my ride back to the town I live in. He proceeds to accuse me of stealing from him and proceeds to choke me and punch me again, physically throwing me out of his house. He then spins a story of me bringing a stranger into his house while he was asleep for SXETC and has my whole family against me. ATM, my resources which are minimal are being withheld. It's not the first time he's done this kind of thing either. I'm cutting him out of life. After a childhood of consistent physical and mental abuse by my mother, I finally swung back when I was 16. Nothing major. Didn't leave a mark and only swung once in self-defense. She proceeded to call the police and tell them I beat her. So after so many years of abuse, I get arrested for hitting her. I tell everyone about what she does to her children. But nobody cares. Everything she does to us the court is now saying that I do to her. My mother then played the victim card big time. And I had to go to an anger management class that threatened me with juvie time if I didn't stand in front of groups of people and tell them that have a problem with hitting her while she sits in the group looking at me with a smug I win look on her face. My birth father accused me of being pregnant. I was most definitely not. And wasn't even sexually active, to attempt to get out having me on his health insurance when I was 16. And stopped paying child support when I was 14. Which I didn't blame him for at the time. My mom was a single mother of 2 children at the time. When my stepsister, his new wife's daughter, turned 16 he bought her a brand new car, new 4-wheeler and a huge wardrobe. He spoils and dotes on his stepdaughter and new baby girl yet was a drunk throughout my entire childhood. Only sobering up for his new family. That's the deepest, most hurtful betrayal I've ever experienced. But I look back and laugh at it now. Honestly,